Oh, and we have questions. I'll have to look up those questions too while we're talking.
I saw that the other day. Somebody was
Pretty cool.
yeah. I remember at the time reading it and thinking, "Oh, that'd be fun to talk about," but I cannot for the life of me remember what it was.
Me either. Jake Henry, here we go.
I'm gonna grab another drink real quick before we start.
Sounds good.
Electrical problems.
I wasn't gonna say it, but then Stuart had his problems too. So. Oh, it looks like this guy that asked the questions, Jake Henry, got FIFA 23, and he saw the badge inside of FIFA 23.
Oh,
Oh
nice.
yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys bought it?
No.
I bought it, but I haven't played it yet.
I'm obsessed with it. I haven't bought it yet.
You're
I'm
obsessed
scared
with it, but
to.
you haven't bought it yet?
Well, you're right. I guess I'm not obsessed with it, am I?
If for nothing else, you got the City Crest now and also Ted Lasso.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Did you see that?
Do you think
I
they
saw that.
Do you think they put Klaus and them on the team? Can you even play as them right now?
I was talking to Jake the other day, and so the team itself is not in there. It's the crest for FIFA Ultimate.
Just the crest. Okay.
And apparently Klaus, Pedro, Bjc, all those guys are on their old teams. Or not Pedro. I don't know if Sarajevo's in, but Bjc and Klaus, their cards and everything are listed as their old teams.
Okay.
And if MLS expansion is any indication, we won't be in as a team until FIFA 24.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Charlotte they were not in FIFA 22, despite the fact that they were expansion this year.
Oh.
So don't get your hopes up too hard for an update or a roster update next year.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait. I thought they would do like the download after the expansion draft.
They haven't been, which is a bummer.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna have to find those mid-show. We just need to get going. Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to Flyover Footy. We have a special show. It's not a special show. It's a normal show, but I called it Electrical Problems, not just because of the stadium. That's probably reason number one. But Stuart was going to join us tonight, and he's having electrical problems himself. So I assume someone saw his tweeting, went outside his house, and busted the conduit leading to the meter for his electricity. I assume this is what happened.
Is this another thing we can blame the city of St. Louis for?
Yeah, but then they'll blame the club.
Because Stu forgot to tell him that he lives there or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, he was supposed to mark that electrical meter. I don't know.
City of St. Louis versus Stuart. There you
go. Let's get that out of the way. We've got some games to talk about, and we've got, what else are we talking about? I'm going to pull my notes up here.
We're going to talk about the year. Games at Centene.
Yeah, we don't have games at Centene, and we're going to talk about like the jersey sponsors and like some expansion draft stuff. So that's the lineup for today. But yes, no games at Centene. Matt, get us started.
So since we recorded, a few like non-game day things have happened. Like to me, all of this kind of coalesces around the time frame that the City Goods store opened. So if you all remember the day that the City Goods store opened, we're recording this on September 21st. So this would have been last Tuesday, like 10 days ago, or almost 10 days ago. If the Thursday before that apparently is when this happened or was found out or started to present itself, because the story from Fox 2, from the Post-Dispatch, it all goes to before that. So when City Goods opened and had power, part of the stadium did not have power. and actually noticed some pictures I had of the stadium at the time. The video boards, you know, how they've been playing Minions and Top Gun Maverick on those video boards. When City Goods opened, only the South video board was playing. The North board was completely off. Didn't think anything of it at the time. Was telling my wife the other day that, you know, I should have realized something was up when only one board was playing. And so at that time, we were all looking forward to what had been announced as the first game at Centene, Sporting Kansas City 2. So up until midweek, it was Wednesday night last week. So, 1 week ago today, late at night, the club not only sent out a tweet, but sent an email to supporters and fans, uh, I assume to the season ticket account holders, that they had to move the game, that due to unrelated team issues with construction around the stadium, they were no longer able to host due to power loss. And so that was the story for 5-6 days. All we knew is that we couldn't host. We knew that there was no time frame for power restoration, and it was kind of all up in the air. We knew we had the potential for more home games in the playoffs if we had home field advantage. So fast forward to this week, and we start to hear a little bit more. Over the weekend, we heard rumors that it was something on 22nd Street where somebody cut a line or they hit a breaker and caused water to flood in. And so that went unreported. And so because it was unreported, it was unrepaired. The massive rainfall that we had that last go round ended up flooding it, and a custom part was destroyed or ruined or caused an entire section of the stadium to lose power. And so the rumors prior to the news this week were that that custom part would take potentially months to create and have shipped in to repair it. And so really the entirety of the playoffs, in my mind, any future game in the fall is potentially at risk. And so,
Like, how many months?
well, not enough months. It was at least the rumor that I heard is that it wasn't enough. Like, it wouldn't affect next year. It was into the fall.
Okay.
Like, you're thinking November, December type of a thing.
Hmm.
That sounds like a pretty worst case scenario, but in the world we live in where the supply chain is what it is, it's not out of the realm of believability.
And I can say I'm in construction, and so the supply chain on electrical products was really, really rough for a long time. And if this is a specialty item, all the more so. In fact, no, there was a box that I needed the other day. I couldn't get it. So it's still kind of a weird problem.
Yeah.
And this
So
kind of thing happens too. I just want to give like the construction point of view on this is I've been around guys that like dug into something they didn't know was there or forgot was there. And this kind of thing happens a lot. And I just wanted to kind of stand up for them and be like, I know people will be tempted to want to point fingers and blame people. It hasn't been bad, but like I think this kind of thing just happens. And unfortunately, it being like Labor Day weekend, that it was like especially bad, that it was bad plus more problems because of that problem. So things were just stacking up, and here we are. I think you were going to say something, Matt.
yeah, so those were a lot of the rumors that we heard, and then it really came out clearly that there were 2 conduits damaged during a trenching operation on September 2nd by a city hired contractor who's installing street lighting conduits on the west side of 22nd Street near the stadium. So if you go to the stadium, 22nd Street is on the west side. I mean, there are massive trenches. That's the biggest area of construction that's occurring right now. And so that's what we found out through the Post-Dispatch. And then it starts to get a little, because that seems a little obvious on the city side, right? City of St. Louis, lowercase city, where they hit something, it went unreported, flooding occurred, heavy rainfall, and it is what it is. This week, today, yesterday, it starts to get a little more spicy. So in the article the Post-Dispatch had today, or last night rather, an engineer with the City Board of Public Service was saying that he confirming everything that was happened. However, they were also saying that the private electrical run that was going from to the VIP parking lot, which only houses around 40 plus parking spaces, I believe, if I heard right, was not marked or identified through the Missouri One Call Dig Right, which is the utility line locating service. If you have a house, you call Dig Right when you're doing some construction or some operation on your yard, same kind of thing. So the city of St. Louis is saying that the electrical run was not properly marked or identified, and so no one on their contractors, reading between the lines, would have knowingly done this. They just happened to run into it because it wasn't properly marked. And so now you're getting the back and forth spat of who's really at fault. It did happen, but did the club properly mark it, or did their construction contractors properly mark it? It's kind of weird how it seems to start to get public in that regard right now, where, ultimately it doesn't matter because it's broken. The city did it. Now they're saying the club didn't properly mark it. All we know is that we have no idea when we're going to have games that we can see in that stadium right now.
Yep.
Looks like it's gonna be a while.
Well, there are only 3 rounds of the MLS Next Pro playoffs in successive weeks, so there's a very short runway, and we have home field advantage in the first 2 weeks. So this coming weekend, and if we win, then next weekend as well in the Western Conference Championship. However, if Columbus makes it to the championship, MLS Next Pro Cup, I guess they're going to call it, then we won't host. But if anybody else besides Columbus makes it and we make it, we would host the championship. So 3 weeks from now.
Yeah,
2.5 weeks. Sorry.
We'll dig in on that when we start talking about the Kansas City game, I think. Just a couple things that I've also learned in doing construction. Like normally you put a tracer wire on these conduit things so that they're findable with like a little machine, or dig right. The weird part is like if it's on your property and it's your own utilities, you don't have to mark it. I had a problem recently where I had a water main I hit that it was my water line and no one marked it whenever they put it in, years ago. And it's just on me. It's just like normal in that case. But this is crossing a street, so surely it should have been marked. And of course, they're pointing fingers. Who does it? We don't even know who it actually belongs to. Does it belong to the stadium? Some people said yes, and so it's whatever. Like Matt said, the most important thing is how it affects us. So it'd be nice. The club didn't say it's not going to be at Centene during the playoffs, right? They left it open.
No, all they've announced is this weekend's. And I think that goes to show the outside hope that they have. If this week is any indication, then it's going to be the Monday following the weekend's matches where they have to really confirm and give a hard yes or no so that planning can occur. So we have the rest of the week into the weekend to see if that part can arrive, or maybe it already has arrived and they're testing it out. I think to me, knowing that the video board on the north side is off and shut down as a part of this, you would assume as a part of this. I don't have confirmation on that. That's a telling sign. So I've been trying to look at some of the pictures that have been posted by. There was a private event there last night at the Mick Ultra Club, and so I've been trying to look at these pictures to see if that north video board is on. To me, if you see that north video board on, it's a pretty good indication that things are trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I like that. A little hint on whether things are going the right way. That's good. And I did notice in the Channel 2 clip that the reason they have some power, I think, might be mostly because they have that generator running all the time.
Right.
That giant generator.
Yep.
That was interesting. Okay, well, let's dig into the game. I think we're going to skip the North Texas game. Santiago, is that okay with you? Is there anything you wanted to say about that?
Well, we lost, and obviously,
we lost bad.
Yeah, we lost badly, and that game is so close to this game in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But hopefully the team will go back and look at the video and see some things that North Texas did. I know we weren't planning to talk about North Texas, but to me it looked like North Texas was ready for City 2, and they know how to attack them and what their weaknesses were. Because if you look at the 3 goals, like they were like very similar, like just long crosses and behind the defense, and took advantage of that.
Which has been what we've been talking about as the scouting report for the most part, that City seems pretty weak in, or City 2 seems pretty weak in, is if you allow attackers behind our defense and we're stuck scrambling from that high press midfield location that at least 2 of our defenders are at, then it's tough to track back. If they can produce numbers in their attacking third in a counter press, then we're usually in trouble.
Yeah. And we've mentioned a few times, like the big switch too does work like a charm. And so we've seen that throughout the season. Anything
And
else from you? Oh, go ahead.
you have to wonder if the reason that works so well is if they're noticing, because I love to talk about how it's not just our fullbacks that move up so high as wingbacks typically do, but it's almost like we shift the field over because oftentimes, and
Yeah.
we'll hit this hard in the SKC2 match because it was the most apparent I've ever seen it. But oftentimes you'll see one of our fullbacks, usually on the left side, move really high, and so the other three shift over to cover that and appear as if they're in a three center back mold, but it's really just that left moved so high. And so when our press is countered and they get the ball on that left side and they switch so high over to our right side, that seems like they're looking for that. They're trying to attack that weakness in the back zone.
And we double down when we do that, right? That's the whole point of the press, is if we're just going to vacate that area and just throw numbers at the ball. And so just in hopes that we intercept it or throw them off enough that they don't even have a chance to get there. So on the off chance that they get there, then we're off to the races, tracking back. So, it's an interesting like gambling move. And that's kind of the fun of it in some ways, is we're betting on ourselves to get to the ball before they can switch it. And it can become a bit of a race of who can pass and who can dribble, back before it can be blocked. It's I don't know. It is what it is.
And to our credit, though, like we harp on it when it goes wrong, but to our credit, it does not go wrong that often.
No, it does not.
We have the goal differential we have for a reason, and it's not necessary. I mean, it is due to our attacking presence. We do score a lot of goals. We're third in the league in overall goals this year. We score a lot, but at the same time, when we do allow goals, it's usually in that manner. But they're not. We don't allow many goals. We've allowed the 6th lowest goals against this season. So, we notice that it's a consistent weakness because it seems like most of the time when we allow goals, it's the same story, rinse and repeat of that counter press and attacking one of our weak points on the corners or on the sides. But like you said, Phil, it works more often than it doesn't. And I think that needs to be called out too, that that it's noticeable because it's the same thing over and over, but it doesn't occur near as often as you might think, given the fact that we constantly talk about it.
And, and we're apt to complain about the thing that happens less and is like a drastic problem. You know what I mean? Once they get that ball over there, it is like, oh God, what are we going to do? And there's the panic kind of thing. So that's fair. It's fair. The only other thing I want to say about this game, and then we'll move on to Sporting Kansas City, is that Tom Timmerman posted a really good stat that all the teams in the playoffs that we've played away, we've lost 2 away. And all the teams we've played that are in the playoffs, we've played at home, we've beat. And that's with us having like the best away record in the league, or at least at the time. So yeah, interesting stuff there that I thought, we can play away. I'm not too worried about it. But then I saw that and I was like, no, that is not correct in this case. So really, really good. Not that we took care of business as we're about to talk about, but really, really good that we are at home. But let's talk about that game. SKC won, St. Louis City won. Santiago, we got to start with you because I got to do the call with you, the Spanish language call with you, and you were just such a professional, and you took care of me. You made it easy on me, and it was really fun doing that with you. So thanks, man. I want to at least compliment you on how good work you did.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I think it went well, and you did great.
Yeah, thanks. But what do you think about the game?
Talk about that for a second, though, Phil. How was it being in the booth with Santi? And Santi, how was it being in the booth with Phil?
It was awesome. I really enjoyed it because like we talk about soccer so much outside of that setup, but it was like, okay, we're here and we are basically gonna do what we usually do, talk about soccer, like about the team, kind of sometimes like nerdy stuff. Like I really enjoyed it, like because I'm used to it. I'm used to talking to Phil and doing the podcast, so it was very natural.
Yeah, it did. It just felt like almost like what we talk about, like especially preseason, we like hung out a lot and watched games together. It was like that. And if I think anyone would be good at color commentary if they're like me, where like when I watch a game or if someone asks me about St. Louis City soccer, I have to like be careful because I will just talk and talk and talk their ear off. Like when you do color commentary, in this experience at least, I was just like, I get to just go. Like I can say whatever I want when Santiago stops talking. And I tried to keep it very quick and to the point so I didn't bore anyone that might have been listening. But that was my favorite part, was like, I'm unleashed, like every time Santiago stops, I can just say what's on my mind or what I'm seeing on the field. And that was my favorite part. It was like my Christmas.
Nice.
But yeah, Santiago, why don't you talk about the game? I mean, you called it, you watched it, you pulled out all the details. Yeah, what'd you think about it?
Well, definitely an improvement from the previous two games, and City 2. You can say that they dominated for long periods of the game. It's just that the ball will not go in. Like after they scored that first goal, they had a lot of chances to score the second, and they just like the Sporting KC goalie, who by the way he's 16 years old, and he's an academy player, and that was his third start in MLS Next Pro, and he just stopped so many shots, and at the end of the game, Celio was saying, "Yeah, we have to be more clinic, but you have to give credit to the goalkeeper that he had a great game. And sometimes even if you keep playing more than 90 minutes, in this case, I think we got to 100 minutes, but you could keep playing and you could tell like, yeah, City's not gonna score because the goalie was playing so well. But definitely one thing, we really missed that number 9, and we tried something new, but you can tell that the number 9, or the lack of a number 9, really makes a difference. So it'll be interesting to see what setup the team has when it plays North Texas this weekend.
If you put the two games that we had both Doling and Klaus out together, it makes it worse. But we had a total between the two games without that traditional number 9, total of 35 shots on goal between those two games. We had 2 goals.
Right.
Or 35 shots total. Sorry, 35 shots total and 2 goals. Shots on goal was pretty poor, 13. So 13 shots on goal out of 35 shots and only 2 goals. I mean, the being clinical and finishing has more merit than any of us care to or want to believe. But that's been the story. That's been the story for, I think, most of the season, though. Our press continually produces a ton of shots. Pretty good amount of shots on goals, but a ton of shots. And our lack of finishing in that regard is troublesome. Tacoma out scores us number of goals by a significant amount. And if we were going to finish at the same rate that they were, we would be leading the league in goals instead of being third. It's not just been a problem the past 2 games, but it's been magnified, I think, because of that lack of presence, especially as Klaus had been really getting into form those last few games, where you could see that he was that shark in the box who he could run alongside a guy. He could keep up at this point. Like, you really saw glimpses of what he was going to be in 23 for us. And it was exciting. And then he goes down with a soft tissue injury. And Doling's red card is just so unfortunate to coincide with that, because it's like, one, you can't really help and you can't do anything about. The other, we shot ourselves in the foot. And it is worrisome going into this game without Doling and Klaus again. I assume we're going to be without Klaus, because the way that Hack was mentioning last week, it did not seem at all like it was possible.
Sounds like him and Berkey may not play in the playoffs at all. That's like the expectation, seemingly. That's my bet.
But so the SKC match to me was that was on display. And the fact that our one goal came off of a corner and it wasn't anything in the run of play. We were attacking, we were dangerous in a few areas, and with, I mean, come on, 23 shots in one game.
Mm-hmm.
Like the math, I mean, the math should be there. Like
Yeah.
the finishing should have been there. Whether it's the personnel gelling together, making the best, high XG shots, I don't know. It doesn't exude a lot of confidence going into the playoffs. And I think even before that, those are the last two games. Well, the game where Doling had his red card, we were shut out. Like that was the first time we'd been shut out since April against Vancouver, I think it was. And so in the last three games, Minnesota, yeah, sorry. So last three games we've had 2 goals. That's not City 2 at all. That is not reminiscent of who we are or what we're capable of. The game before that, Santi, where Stu and I were over at your place, we had 5 goals. We dropped 5 on Timbers 2. Before that, 5 on Quakes 2. Before that, 4 on Whitecaps 2. When you talk about form and where we're going into the playoffs, it really feels like we're limping into the playoffs here.
It does. And I'm not sure. There's always that debate over like how much do you instruct your attackers to do exact things. People hate that about what they think what Berhalter orders his attackers to do versus like you just put them out there and let them express themselves. Is the opposite of that. It seemed like we leaned toward letting them express themselves, get them up top, and letting Celio and Diaz kind of work together to hopefully make some magic for a goal. And clearly that didn't work. Even in the false 9 thing didn't work very well, as Hack even said himself. And I think the last thing I want to say is that I do think, and Hack admitted, that we did look more natural with Dita up top when he came on because he was trying to push the center backs back the whole time. He was actually running in behind. And so there was space there to play with. And I think if he had played longer and if they knew him better and his movement better, that I think we might have been more likely to score a goal, in my opinion. So I don't normally do this, but I would actually say that I would go on a limb and say that I'd like to see Dita start this game. Even if he only plays a half, I'd really like to see what we look like, just like putting our cards on Dita, on the most natural striker we have left. Well, that as it may.
And when he would fill that number 9 spot, but when you're talking about in form scoring goals, he's had 2 goals in I think his last 3 matches. Between the U23s at UPSL and City 2. So he is as in form of a number 9 as we could find right now, and getting him minutes between UPSL side and City 2, I would absolutely agree. Love to see him in that spot. And if it doesn't work, you could always fall back to what you've been doing the past couple of games. You could find an opportunity for Caden Glover to showcase in the second half. There's a lot of things you could do. And I just hope and I don't think we're going to do this at all. Earlier in the year, I'd said at one point that I think we're going to go conservative when we were down a man in a game, and we ended up scoring like 3 goals right after we did. So I've long thrown the idea of us playing conservative to the wayside. I think our game is our game, and our game plan is our game plan. But Phil, one thing you were saying about allowing the attackers to be creative and kind of make their own plays really harken back to I don't know if you guys have had the chance to listen to those City Voice podcasts that were released last weekend. Brett. So yeah, Peter Woods, who is interviewing Bradley Carnell and Hackworth. Yeah. So I haven't listened to Hackworth yet, but Carnell
I listened to Hackworth first, and I haven't finished Carnell.
Listen to Carnell, because if you juxtapose his first interview back in January to this one, my God, does he sound in command of the situation? Like he is a completely different, confident St. Louis City head coach. And it was exciting to hear, but also the level of how much he was plugged into City 2 throughout the year was so obvious. And he talked about that, how the 2/3 of the field leading up to that attacking third, we're more we have plays that can be, we had formations, and we had ideas of where players wanted to be, and it was a lot of scripting, more or less. But then that attacking third was very much allowing playmakers to do their thing and move where they felt it was natural to go. And so they gave that freedom and flexibility for them to make plays. And it is, I mean, both good and sense that we create so many opportunities, but we can't finish. More often than, like, to that point where, yes, we're a third in the league in goals. So we finished a lot, but compared to the number of shots and chances that we have, it should be more. And so you're seeing that pay dividends. Whether, whatever the issue is in the percentage finishing, I think that can and should be addressed through whatever ways they want. But I think the idea and the concept is bearing a lot of fruit. And so that was very illuminating to me, just to hear that mindset of how they treat their forwards, how they treat their attacking third. And you can see it a lot in the fact that Celio leads the league in a lot of key categories for assisting, successful crosses, successful dribbles. And you saw in the SKC2 game where Diaz almost single-handedly scored himself a goal there in like the
That was
70th, 80th minute, that where he literally just started dribbling the ball down the center and had this amazing 360 play, 360 play where he just almost brought us back and almost gave us that win single-handedly. So that kind of flexibility and freedom that you're giving your forwards is exciting to see. And, I think that that's something that we're going to be able to look forward to next year.
I agree. While we're on the topic, before we move on, we got to talk about one other thing in that game. But before we move on from this part of this topic, Adam is at AG10H on Twitter, asked 3 questions. The first one, the last 2 we'll get at the end of the show, I think. But this one is, what might Hackworth change, if anything, compared to the North Texas game last week? So he asked this before this last game, but yeah, what do you think, Santiago? What do you think he would change in this?
So that's really interesting.
Compared to what we just said, what would Hack do?
So I'll get back to that. But 2 weeks ago, when St. Louis City 2 was getting ready to play North Texas, I asked Hackworth, I was like, so you may see North Texas again in the playoffs, depending on what happens in the next few games. Would you plan this game differently, or do you treat it as a different game? And I was listening to what he said, like before the podcast, and he was like, well, North Texas needs to win, and yeah, we're not gonna have some guys on the team, but yeah, we're gonna put a competitive team out there and try to get the result. And at the end, he said, like, but yeah, if we see them again, it will be something different. So that just made me think. I was like, well, maybe he's just playing mind games. And yeah, he put a competitive team, but maybe this weekend we're gonna see something different. And he didn't really wanted to show them what the team, like the real team that will be in the playoffs. Just something to think about.
Yeah, because he also mentioned Glover and Dita, didn't he? And,
he did, yeah.
And Glover, we thought maybe that meant they were going to start, and Glover didn't see the field. I thought that was interesting too. I thought maybe he's trying to throw off the competition as well, because clearly teams are doing their homework on us. So
right,
he's probably right to do that.
And the thing is, like, that was the second game against North Texas, and this playoff game will be the third game. So yeah, I will get that. Yeah, maybe you want to give them a different look, make them think, and then in the playoff game, you throw something totally different at them. The only thing is that we won't have a Dolling. We probably won't have a Claus. So I agree with you, Phil. I will give a chance to Tita Armstrong at least the first half, and if it doesn't work, maybe go back to Celio and Diaz at top. But yeah, we'll really try to, at least the first half or the beginning, go with a number 9, which is what has worked for the team so well.
I think the idea of Hackworth throwing people off is only fair game. We're the only team in the league who we can't throw people off because of the unknowns of our lineup. How many times have you heard Hackworth talk about, we don't know if we're going to see player A, B, or C because whether they're getting minutes this weekend for the MLS side? Well, we don't have that luxury of that chaos and confusion. So why not toss a little chaos and confusion in? You might see Glover, you might see Dita, or some other player. Klaus might be healthy, and then suddenly he's not.
Or maybe he will be healthy now. Who knows?
Yeah. I just want to say that when Hackworth took over at Louisville City, we were hot and heavy about this. We were like, can Hack cut it? Because, James O'Connor was a legend over there, and he just had those guys like really tuned in. And Hackworth came in and he kind of kept it the same at first, and then he would make tweaks. And they struggled early in the season, and he would just like make tweaks here and there. And it just really feels like what's been happening, like something's not right. And he didn't really fiddle with things until this has happened. And he's like, just like plugging and playing and learning along the way. And those problems didn't get solved quickly. And luckily at Louisville, it was the beginning of the season. By the end, they probably won. They won most of the seasons they played, but under Hack. But now we got the playoffs, so we don't have that luxury. He's got to figure it out faster. He doesn't have the time. So the pressure's on. It's unfortunate that the situation is what it is. All I can think is like, let's just get past this first playoff game, and then it'll feel like the real City is going to play the rest of the playoffs. And also something we learned this week, I was going to say get Doling back. He does pronounce his name Dolling. Has everyone gotten the news on this?
Dolling.
So
like
Tom
Dolling,
Timmerman,
like Dolling.
Yeah, like a doll.
Dolling.
Yeah, or yeah, yes, Dolling. But no, like I guess no one asked him or something, and he always said Doling. And at some point he let maybe the comms people know. He's like, my name's actually pronounced Dolling. I think that's how it went. I don't know if that's how the story went, but I do know for a fact that his name is actually pronounced Dolling by him and his family. So if you do want to say it right, like I heard Tom ask it and I was like, silly Tom, he got his name wrong. And then I found out, no, Tom, of course, did his homework and I have not. So.
Right.
So there's that. I wanted everyone to know, whoever listened to the podcast, you guys are in on the know.
Now I want to go back and no. So, I'm going to call a little BS on and say like no fault of our own.
No.
Well, but when I'm looking back now because I distinctly remember certain things, and that was one of those because we've talked about this a little bit, and I'm now looking back at the media email that we got at the beginning of the season with player pronunciations, right? And so if maybe City didn't know, maybe they didn't ask every single player, and they went off of certain other things. But we got, Josh Doling, DOH, all caps, -LEE-NG. That's not Da, that's Doe.
Man, I wasn't going to throw our comms department under the bus, but
I'm just saying, like, you're saying, like, because we've called him, I feel bad now because we called him Doling all year.
I feel bad too, but I think he would have said something if it really bothered him, or if he like actually listened to anyone using his name. That's probably the answer, is that he doesn't read.
That's probably true.
The tweets and stuff. But yeah, I think
no harm, no foul is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he cares enough. But we like to get that right. So I'm glad, Tom took care of that for us. Now we can say it right.
Much appreciated, because hopefully we get to say it a lot next year too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I hope you're right. Well said. One more thing we got to talk about in this game, because we had a pretty hot debate going about this. The Pedro mess up, right? It's around the 60th minute and we see Pedro come on and I'm like, here we go. We even had a moment where the ball was like deflected, probably 10 yards outside of the box. And I saw him wind up because he was like, ready to repeat that long missile for a goal. And he did hold back. And so I was so excited he came on, but like there was a few like minor defensive misses, and then basically him giving up the goal. And the debate was, is it Pedro's fault? Where were the other defenders? What was going on? So I just thought we'd like kind of relive that argument in real time here on the podcast.
Well, Stu's not here, which I think is a little unfortunate, because he was one of the proponents of it was Pedro's fault and he should assume the liability on this one. However, I give Pedro a little bit of credit, and maybe this goes to me watching that one replay way too many times. trying to figure out what happened before, which to the best of our knowledge, it was a throw in near our attacking third, like really high up on the pitch. And we threw it in, we turned it over, but it was a quick turnover to where the ball was cleared out of our attacking third very quickly on the right-hand side over to Pedro. And because it was a throw in so high up the field, our high press was so high up the field. If you look at that replay, Hebert and Yarrow, who were the center backs, were Yarrow was in the box and Hebert was right outside of the 18-yard box. And so there is nobody defending other than Pedro. He is literally last man. And when he got the ball, there was a guy on him pretty tight, and then there were two who were closing in on midfield. And so there's and Ben DeRosa. This also speaks to what I was alluding to earlier of how we tend to shift our players over so far to the side, one way or the other. Pedro, left back, was on the far right side of the field. Like he was in the right back's defensive spot. Ben DeRosa was, I don't know, 10 yards up directly in front of him, seemingly waiting for a pass. So, you can kind of excuse Ben, it seems, from any of that, because while the one man was on Pedro, Ben was seemingly waiting for Pedro to make that pass. Well, Pedro tried to pull the ball. He tried to step back. But when he stepped back, he kind of lost the tight control of the ball. The ball had a little separation. And I think, based on the highlight, it was because he was noticing the players in the middle of the field and trying to gauge how close they were gaining on him, how close they were closing that gap. And so there were two players, really three, on him with nobody else around him. And so he could have been trying to clear it, but I think instead of keeping his eye on the ball, he was keeping his eye on the defender to know how much time he had to play the ball. And when that happened, he had too much separation with the ball, didn't control it tightly. And so that allowed the defender closest to him to move in, and he turned the ball over. When he turned the ball over, that's when I'm not even joking. When you see the defender take control of the ball, that's when you notice Kyle Hebert enter the screen and start to sprint down after that player has already gotten the ball and started his run. And from there, because, those other two players were at midfield and they were making the parallel run, it was easy to make that one touch pass and get the ball past Creek.
Yeah. So I was more on Team Stewart here. And I'll phrase it differently than he did. I would just say that I'm not actually saying you're wrong, Matt. Like maybe those guys should have been back. I would, like, in my head, I'm debating, is it system and they beat the system and that's the problem? Or does the system dictate that Pedro should have had one person back with him or even two? I will say that on the corners, we only had two guys back. That was never a problem all night. So here we are. I'd like to just dismiss that debate completely anytime, because I think you covered it well. Anytime you are the last man back with the ball and this is a pressing team in Kansas City, like they press when it seems right. And these boys were full tilt on the run. One was in the lead and two were close behind. And in those situations, you don't Zach Steffen it, as I put it in our DMs. You know what I mean? You don't take a Cruyff turn to get away from something flashy away from the guy trying to press you. You clear the damn ball like Matt Turner would. You know what I mean? So I think he got a little too fancy. I think he thought the level that he could get away with it. Probably. I get that. Maybe he's not used to the level, but in those situations, I would probably figure out the first question, Matt, with my team if I was looking at the tape, and then I'd be like, sorry, Pedro, but everyone, look what happened here. Just clear the ball. You know what I mean? So, Santiago, do you want to maybe be a tiebreaker here? Do you have any thoughts? Oh, we lost him.
Well, I'll say, the interesting thing is, so we talked about whether you should clear it or not, and Stewie was making a lot of comments about you, and you were saying the same thing about clear it or just knock the ball out of bounds. He was right next to the touchline. There were options there. The one option that he never even, we didn't even approach with Creek in the game is passing back to the keeper, which before Berkey came wasn't really a thing. and since Berkey hasn't played a few games, hasn't been a thing.
Mm.
So I don't know what the idea is behind that, whether it's comfortability or what, but that never seemed to be an option. And if that was, to me, looking back on it, that would have been option A. Is the obvious move is you're seeing 3 defenders close to you, you just back pass it. You give it to the keeper,
could
you
see
let him
that.
clear the ball. But that's not, again, when Berkey's not in the match, that's not something that we've really relied heavily on.
But I will say that I do think Creek was responsible in that game. Like, he didn't take any chances. He wasn't trying to be fancy the entire game. He had at least 4 or 5 clearances with a dude running up on him. So,
For
you know, I
sure.
think he proved that he could handle it. I just think Pedro got the ball, and once the floundering happened, you know, passing back and clearing it just like exited his
Yeah.
brain. At
And
that point, you're like a antelope running from a cheetah.
and definitely nothing against our keepers. I know they're capable, both Creek and McGrain. They handle themselves well. It's not that, you know, you don't trust them to back pass the ball to the keeper.
Yeah.
But I think that and yes, Pedro did have that was a bad play on his part. You know, he misplayed the ball. He didn't keep it tight. He made a bad move. My point was only that only occurred because he was looking at the players closing in on him and trying to figure out what he needed to do based on where they were, having nobody around him to play the ball to or do anything with, and being on the right side of the field, which was a foreign area to him. You know, so there's a lot of uncomfortability around what he was doing and where he was that was very apparent. And so, yes, not absolving him because that was clearly an errant play. However, I'm more of the opinion that it is system based in what allowed it to happen.
Cool. Well, I think we've covered the options. The truth is out there. We've beaten the horse to death.
which we never do. We never disagree on things like this. It's so weird.
I love it. Let's move on to the BJC announcements. There are jersey sponsored details. There are training facility naming details. And since Matt is the detail guy, I was like, I'm not even going to look this up. Matt, you take it from here, man.
Yes. So September 15th, City announced one day, this was a weird week. So that Wednesday, you know, we had the Centene news where we weren't going to play at Centene. And then, you know, right back on the saddle. Let's get back to it with founding partners. Adding BJC Healthcare, Washington University Orthopedics, the club's official medical services provider in BJC, and the team physicians at WashU Orthopedics. So the deal will have the training center on the south side of Market has been renamed the Washington University Orthopedics High Performance Center. The Washington University Orthopedics staff will be the team physicians, and most notably for fans, on the academy kits and on the training kits of the first team, on the front, the sponsor will be BJC. Also on the team's upcoming first kit that will be revealed around the November timeframe this year, on the right sleeve will be the BJC patch. So big sponsorship on that.
Yeah, that's big.
And it's not the first time the team has partnered with BJC. If you remember the COVID vaccine clinics that they ran months ago, that was through a partnership with BJC. So it's pretty clear that this has been something that's been in the works, or at least iterative in its nature for quite a while. In the press release too, it was interesting that, and I thought this was pretty cool. It said that BJC and WashU Orthopedics is going to team with City SC to focus on community health, collaborating on events, including an annual City Sprint 5K, health and wellness classes, nutrition and education, and volunteer programs. So this is more than just name on a kit, name on a building. It's something that's going to affect the community. And, you know, we're gearing up. Santi and I are going to be running in the Biz Dash 5K tomorrow night. That's coming to and from Centene. So it's kind of cool to have this, you know, city sponsored with BJC 5K in the works that, you know, everybody can get excited about. And it's a nice community initiative.
Absolutely. Speaking of you guys doing that run, I took my sons to the fun run that was the futsal court in Dogtown's ribbon cutting. So
France Park?
In France Park, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have like footage of that. I have like tons of footage of a million different things, and I have to catch up. I got to start posting videos. So anyway, I was there and it was really cool, and I got to talk to Kalia, and yeah, I'll be having a video on that as soon as I can catch up.
That was another bit of news as well. So that one has been in the works for quite a while. The
Yes.
second futsal court that City has helped bring up around the community. The first being Marquette Park in Dogtown. I'm sorry, at Dutchtown. And so it's cool to see this happen. And one of my buddies, JoJo, was behind or helped get the Franz Park up and running. So
Nice.
seeing that on Facebook and everything, I'm glad they actually had the ribbon cutting along with the fun run and all of that occur. So that was a fun thing the other weekend.
It was super cool. Like, that's what I love about sending my kids to the city school is we showed up to the fun run and we just saw the parking lot is where my kids went to school, right next door, that everyone parked in. And it's just like all these kids and moms that we knew, I mean, I didn't expect that, but everyone, in St. Louis, you support your neighborhood, and that was really nice to see. And here they are coming out for a fun run. Dogtown United is there, and City's there too. So, you got to love that as a guy that's looking for community involvement where I live. That happened. That was awesome.
That's one of those things too. And without spending too much time on it, is I've noticed over the past few weeks, especially, is how much in the mainstream of St. Louis, City SC really has started to become. So I typically think of soccer. I mean, obviously St. Louis has a huge history of soccer, but I think of professional soccer in St. Louis as, especially the last 10 plus years, as like a niche thing. Like, it's not on the level of the Cardinals, it's not on the level of the Blues. It's 5,000 to 6,000 people. It's St. Louis FC. It's, it's hugely important and impactful to a group. But it's not in the mainstream consciousness of non-sports fans, right? Of people in the area. And whether it's the bumper stickers, the hats, the shirts, the showing up to these events, it's the moms who are bringing their kids, the dads who are bringing their kids. It's just, the kids wearing the shirts. It's all of that coalescing around this club that is now on equal footing, really, to the Cardinals and Blues, and has that excitement for the stadium. That is, it's jarring, I guess, is a decent way to say it, because I'm excited, but at the same time I catch myself thinking, wow, this is it's not what I'm used to. And so like the 11,000 people who are going to be at Centene, that concept of everybody just vying for tickets to see professional soccer in St. Louis, it's surreal still. And these community events further that to me.
I agree. The last topic before we get to Adam's other questions is the announcement of the calendar for free agency, for expansion draft, and I believe the super draft. I hope I have the correct article here. Matt,
Yep.
Tell me if this is wrong. Monday, November 14th is the deadline for, oh wait, nope. November 11th is the MLS expansion draft deadline to claim.
You got the dates ish.
Why don't you take it, Matt? Because I'm reading it wrong. I'm both times now. I'm sorry.
You're good. And it's similar to what we've talked about, what we've guessed on based on previous years. So MLS Cup is November 5th. So that's when the last game of the season is. So that's when it all really starts or ends, depending on your perspective. So November 5th, and I hope City does a watch party for this to kick everything off, because it should be
for sure
week or two of festivities, because this is going to be when things really kick into high gear for City and their roster building. So November 5th, MLS Cup. November 7th, the trade window opens for the other 28 clubs. And so the trade window is going to be open for 2 full days, November 7th to the 9th. On November 10th, Thursday, a list of protected players will be announced, meaning all of the players there's 12 players who are being protected from each club. That list will be known on Thursday, November 10th. Friday, November 11th.
Well, hold on. That's where we look up all the St. Louis players that are in MLS, right? And see if they're protected. Go ahead.
Yes, exactly. So, but it's not just those lists. So there's other players who are automatically protected, for instance. So I think like Generation Adidas players are automatically protected.
They can protect eligible expansion draft players. Yes.
Yeah. So that's Thursday, November 10th is going to be a huge day for our people who care about the nitty gritty, the nerdy stuff, trying to look at rosters to see, you know, who has the St. Louis ties, who we're going to be excited about potentially, who might fit in our system, all that jazz. So we're only going to have a day for it. We're only going to have 24 hours to talk about it, because on November 11th, Friday, St. Louis City SC, the only expansion club entering the league, has our expansion draft. So we get 5 players from the eligible player list, the non-protected players. So that will happen on Friday, November 11th. And in addition to the non-protected players that we have to choose from, it's going to be important to remember that there are 5 teams that we have no selection from, no opportunity to select any player. Austin FC, Atlanta United FC, DC United, LAFC, and New York City FC. And it's because last year's expansion team this year, Charlotte, selected a player from each one of those clubs. And so they're exempt. So they get to just sit this one out, protect all their players. So if you're thinking about any of the currently rostered signed players for those clubs, they're not going to be an option for the expansion draft. Austin, Atlanta, DC, LAFC, New York City.
I'm going to be a jerk, Matt. We're going to cover this stuff hardcore when we get close to these dates. Let's just kind of give these guys the dates and a quick explanation, and then I think we need to get out of here.
Okay, so after the expansion draft on Friday, November 11th, there's going to be some other things that occur in MLS. So that's basically when we start. So at that point, you have clubs submitting offers to players who are restricted, essentially. Free agency is going to open on November 16th. There's a re-entry process of players who used to be in MLS coming back on the 17th. Those processes will continue. We're going to see additional players that we can sign and announce. There's going to be a lot of things that happen starting at that November 11th date. And so the next big date after that is going to be December 21st, which is the 2023 MLS Super Draft.
Whoa, yeah.
So that is going to be the college draft, as everybody thinks of it as. So St. Louis City gets the first pick in that, and it will be a Generation Adidas player. It will be a player that top caliber, one of the top players. It always is. And so there are 3 rounds in that. City having the first pick in each one of those rounds. December 21st is a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to get really nerdy on that stuff. Sorry about that, Matt, but we were getting close to an hour here. We got some questions to ask. So yeah, watch for those dates. We'll be posting them. We'll be covering it hardcore. It'll be a lot of fun. Santiago, welcome back. Sorry for the trouble. Would you say that you're having electrical problems?
I was going to say that electrical problems hit my house too.
Oh man. Okay. Well, welcome back. Let's ask some questions. We'll start with you. Do you think the playoff game staying at SIUE is for the best? An elimination game on a pitch they're not used to seems risky. I thought that was an interesting question from Adam.
Well, but who is not used to it? Like North Texas played there, and City 2 has played there too.
Oh no, he means since it's not at Centene Stadium.
Oh, got it.
Sorry.
Yeah, it could be. Because if the game was going to be there, they were just going to train there for a few days and get used to the pitch. But to be honest, I don't think it matters.
Go ahead, Matt.
Same time, though, the club is training on a grass pitch daily now on field 2 down at the Centene training fields. And so I'm not saying they're not used to the turf, because they're used to playing games. You know, they know what it feels like. But day in and day out during the week, they're on a grass field. And so, you know, stadium aside, well, you can't put the stadium aside. You can't put the gravitas, the magnitude, oh my God, we're here. So there could be a little bit of jitters or butterflies or that effect. But these guys are professionals. I'm not expecting that to last too long. I don't, from a playing surface, I kind of think Centene would be a little more what they're used to when they train. Of course, not knowing where North Texas trains, whether it's on turf. I would tend to think it's on turf, given all those FC Dallas facilities that are down there. And so that might lend itself to North Texas being used to the fields that they're going to play on at SIUE.
But I was thinking similarly, Matt, it's going to be the same grass is put down at the same time, the same grading, the same dirt, the same people doing all the work. It's got to be pretty damn close, right? So who knows?
Yeah, and not only
Yeah.
that, but 11,000 versus 3,000, 4,000 max that
You're
you
right.
will have at SIUE.
You know,
That
so I there's been some talk about that this week as far as like the fact that SIUE I don't think it was entirely sold out, but I do think it was the best SIUE crowd that we've had of the year.
Oh yeah.
Um,
it was a great turnout.
Mm-hmm.
and other games that we've had at SIUE, the players have commented about how loud it was with the fans, with the drums, with everything that's going on. And Yarrow in particular had a comment that this was the loudest that it seemed so far. And I think that is still an atmosphere and environment that is very beneficial to St. Louis City. You know, I think having that level of noise and crowd, they're used to it, they know it, and just to amplify that there can't go understated.
We said it a lot in the broadcast. Like Luligans, I think were like more solid and loud than I've ever heard them. Like they were strong, and together, and the drums especially, of course. It was good. It was really good. Props to them, and thank goodness they're there doing such good work. Last question. Do you guys think they'll consolidate resources and upgrade the stream now that they only have 4 games to deal with? Yes, right? We had 4 cameras there. No, I didn't watch the feed because we were all there, right? But there were 4 cameras at that SIUE game, the last game of the season. So if they do that for the last game of the season, I would hope they would do that for the playoffs. But I guess they still got to worry about all the playoff games instead of just one game of the week.
Yeah, but I will think they will treat all the playoff games as game of the week. They are all at different times. 2 are on Saturday, 2 are on Sunday, or maybe they will have a Saturday, like that's the game of the week, and that one gets the 4 cameras and the other one doesn't. Same thing on Sunday, but I will expect for them to treat all of them as the game of the week and have the same setup. It's the playoffs. It's like it's showtime. Like yeah, like the stream hasn't been the best, but you still have time to make it a little better for the playoffs and use more resources and have the 4 cameras instead of shooting from the moon and then people won't know what they are watching.
And I don't think that we were the only game of the week last week, too. I if I remember looking at the MLS Next Pro website, I think there was an Eastern Conference game of the week as well.
Okay.
And so and that lends itself more to that idea that they can have every single game be elevated to that game of the week level where you have multiple cameras, you're able to show zoom ins and replays during the broadcast. So I do think it'll be a better broadcast than a typical MLS Next Pro match throughout the playoffs. I would agree with that. And it's also their first playoffs. It's their first opportunity to try. I mean, they could try new things. They could be showcasing themselves in the playoffs. So it's more visibility, extra eyes, fewer games. I think we may see I want to see that, and I would expect to see that for all of the games leading up to what I would hope to be the best presentation for the championship game.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention this. I meant to talk about this earlier, but now it works out. I talked to Charles Altchek, is the MLS Next Pro president today, and that interview's up. I'm going to push it a little better tomorrow. But just highlighting some of the things that were talked about, he mentioned, I always think about how great that first game was. It was at Herman Stadium, St. Louis City versus Rochester. There were tons of cameras. Taylor Twellman was on the call. It felt big. It felt bigger than most USL games I've watched that aren't like pumped up any special way. It was awesome. And, of course, I did my best to kind of ask a few things about the stream without being a total jerk. And it's hard line to walk, and I don't know how well I did on that, but I did ask, and he was very non-committal about next year. But one highlight of that interview is that he did say that all MLS Next Pro games will be on Apple Plus next year. So that is good news. And so now the next question is, do we get match replays? Do we get instant replays? Do we get decent feeds from a decent location? He was very non-committal about all of those things, which is almost a no in that kind of context. But at least we have some something from the horse's mouth. Yeah.
My optimistic self, my idiotic optimistic self, tells me that's more that they have yet to work out the details, as opposed and he doesn't want to announce anything, as opposed to we shouldn't expect anything. The fact that he mentioned that it was right, but the fact that he mentioned that every game is going to be on Apple TV is brand new information. First of all, that I have not seen that anywhere. So that, to me, I mean, kudos to you for getting that out of him, because that's the first time I've ever heard that. Even on MLS's website, mlssoccer.com/Apple, you don't see all MLS Next Pro matches advertised. It's select MLS Next Pro and MLS Next matches. So we always thought it was going to be a game of the week situation. And then if you think about what Apple puts on their platforms, it is not the quality of MLSnextPro.com.
It's true. Yeah.
I cannot see.
And he said that too, actually. He talked about the quality of Apple Plus and the level of technology that company represents.
They don't put shit on their broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They don't, that's not something they allow on their platforms. They don't allow their name to be associated with subpar quality. And especially when it comes to streams and broadcasts. Like Major League Baseball is the example. And we know that MLS is going to have a step up in their consistency of their broadcast. But even MLS Next Pro, we thought the game of the week made sense because, okay, you can devote a better product to put on Apple. But if they're gonna, if Apple's going to put that entire league on their platform, then we have to see some consistent elevation in what we see on these streams. There's no, I refuse to believe, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I refuse to believe that the quality we see now is something Apple's going to allow on their platform.
Maybe long term it will be all the games, but it will be a big investment to get all the stadiums ready for that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's their first year. I said that too. It's only going to get better. I do have faith that they are going to get better and better in that regard. So, all right, guys, I think that's good for today. Thanks so much for hanging out. And if you're listening, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you listened to that interview with Charles Altchek. I hope you're seeing the Flyover Focus stuff through the week. I hope you're listening to Matt's, what's your thing called? I forget. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's the weekly recap on the City SC report feed.
Man.
So it's just like a 10 to 15 minutes, quick hits on all the news that's happened in the past week. I try to just cover it very clearly and concisely. Not a whole lot of fluff.
Quick and precise. This is like, perfectly you, Matt. I love it. Really good stuff.
It is great. I really like it. Like if I'm driving to run an errand, perfect, because I can hear Matt 10 to 15 minutes and I have all the information and refresh on some things that I may not know, or things, oh yeah, that happened. So I really like it, Matt. You're doing a great job.
Oh, I appreciate that. And honestly, that's something that I have to tell myself about when we're doing these kind of things too, because I get so ingrained in what we talk about, and I don't like to repeat myself in certain things. But us too, we always have to remember that not everybody listens to everything. People aren't as like just sunk into the ecosystem that we are, and you never know when you're going to be the first time somebody hears something. So if you skip over it, if you don't mention it, don't take anything for granted in what people listen to. They don't listen to everything like we do necessarily. So everybody has their first opportunity to hear something.
Yeah, and speaking of where you listen to it, that's on the City Report feed. So make sure you catch it on that. Don't want to confuse you guys and go looking for it on our feed. That would be bad. All right. Yeah. Thanks again, everybody. We'll be talking to you guys next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.
See you guys.